Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You've been in a relationship for a while, everything seems fine, but suddenly something feels off. You've noticed her pulling away, her texts becoming less frequent, and the energy just isn't the same. Then it hits you. She's realized you've lost interest. What happens next? How does she truly react when she feels that emotional distance growing between you two? In this moment, everything changes. The way she responds, the decisions she makes can completely shift the dynamic of your relationship. And if you're not careful, this moment could lead to something much bigger. So if you've ever found yourself in this situation, or if you want to understand how to handle it if it happens, this is the speech you need to hear. Stick with me until the end, and I'll share the most powerful thing you can do when you sense this distance and how it can transform your relationship forever. When she realizes you've lost interest, one of the first things she will likely experience is a deep sense of confusion. This confusion isn't just a fleeting emotion, it digs deeper, often leaving her questioning the foundation of the relationship. She might have noticed subtle signs, the late night phone calls that aren't as frequent, the long pauses in conversations, or the sense that she's no longer a priority in your life. These signs aren't easy to ignore, especially for someone who has been emotionally invested. When a woman realizes that you've lost interest, it's as though her world suddenly feels like it's shifting beneath her feet. All the stability, the comfort, and the trust she once felt in the relationship now seems uncertain. This emotional shift is significant, and it triggers a series of reactions that are often hard for both partners to navigate. Her first instinct might be to retreat inwardly, trying to process what is happening without showing it outwardly. In the beginning, this retreat can come across as coldness or aloofness. She might start to pull back emotionally, testing the waters to see if you notice or care enough to make an effort. This is her way of trying to understand whether your actions are temporary or if they signal something deeper. If she perceives that you're not reacting, it could lead to frustration and eventually resentment. She might not vocalize it immediately, but deep down, she is trying to decipher whether this distance between you two is something she can bridge or if it's a sign that the relationship has run its course. This emotional pullback can also trigger feelings of self-doubt. The woman who has been emotionally invested will start questioning herself. She might wonder if she did something wrong, if she became too demanding, or if something changed in her that caused you to lose interest. She will replay past conversations, actions, and even the smallest details in her head, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when things began to shift. It's not unusual for her to become frustrated with herself, even if she hasn't done anything wrong. This self-reflection is painful because she begins to question her worth in the relationship. She might wonder if she's not enough, if she's not interesting enough, or if she's lost some of the qualities that initially attracted you. These are not just surface-level thoughts. They strike at the core of her confidence and self-esteem. What makes this situation even more complex is that often she may not feel comfortable confronting you directly about her concerns. She might not want to seem clingy or desperate. Instead, she could adopt a wait-and-see approach, hoping that you'll recognize the distance and try to reconnect before things get too far apart. But if the silence continues and she feels ignored or unheard, the emotional wound deepens. Over time, this emotional distance grows wider, and it becomes more challenging to bridge the gap, even if both of you want to. What you must understand at this moment is that her reaction isn't just about your lack of interest. It's about her emotional investment and how deeply she values the connection you both once shared. When she starts pulling away, it's a defense mechanism, a way to protect herself from the potential pain of realizing that the relationship might be ending. This doesn't mean she's giving up or doesn't care. Rather, it's her way of shielding herself from emotional vulnerability in a situation that feels unpredictable and uncertain. During this time, one of the most powerful things you can do is make her feel heard. It's important to communicate openly and show that you understand what's happening, even if the loss of interest was unintentional or caused by external factors. Expressing your feelings and being transparent with her can help rebuild trust. When she sees that you're willing to acknowledge the emotional distance and take steps to address it, it gives her hope. It shows that you're still invested in the relationship and that you're willing to put in the effort to regain the connection you once had. However, if you fail to acknowledge her feelings or continue to distance yourself, the situation will likely worsen. She might eventually reach a point where she feels she has no choice but to walk away. This is not a decision made lightly. It's often the result of feeling disconnected, unappreciated, and unheard. Once she's reached this point, reversing the situation becomes much harder as trust and emotional security have been severely compromised. When she realizes you've lost interest, it's a pivotal moment. How you respond will shape the future of your relationship. Will you address the situation with care and communication, or will you let it spiral into something irreversible? Then the way you handle this can either draw you closer or push you further apart. It's about acknowledging her feelings, reconnecting emotionally, and showing that you're still present, mentally and emotionally, in the relationship. This is the time to step up and prove that your initial interest wasn't just a fleeting feeling, but a commitment worth fighting for. When a woman senses that you've lost interest, her reaction often involves a shift in her behavior and emotions. It's common for her to start distancing herself from you as a way of protecting herself. The first thing she might do is to stop initiating conversations. In relationships, communication is key, and when she feels like you're no longer as engaged as you once were, she might pull back and wait to see if you'll reach out. This isn't a game, rather, it's her attempt to gauge the depth of your feelings. She's observing how you respond to the silence, to the sudden emotional distance. This move is not about being passive-aggressive, but more about testing the waters. She wants to know if you still care enough to make the first move, to bridge the gap she feels forming between you both. The absence of her usual texts, calls, or the eagerness to meet up might seem subtle at first, but it's a sign that something has shifted. What she's truly looking for in this moment is reassurance. If you were once someone she could count on, someone who made her feel secure and cared for, the sudden coldness can feel like a betrayal. This may not even be intentional on your part. You might have become distracted by life's challenges, your own work, or just other personal issues. But to her, this emotional shift feels like a lack of priority and validation. And when that happens, it leaves her in a vulnerable state, trying to figure out where she stands. Another response to this loss of interest is a subtle shift in her level of engagement in the relationship. While she may have been an open book in the past, eager to share details about her day, her thoughts, and her feelings, she may begin to close off. She might become more guarded, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. The walls she once let down so easily might start to rebuild brick by brick. She's protecting her heart because she doesn't want to invest emotionally in someone who isn't reciprocating. This is her way of saying, if you're not going to show up for me, then I won't put myself out there for you either. It's her defense mechanism, and it's an automatic reaction when she feels her emotional well-being might be at risk. She might also become more distant in the way she speaks to you. The warmth, affection, and playful banter that once defined your interactions could fade. Conversations might become more superficial than evolving around logistics and mundane topics rather than the deeper connection that once existed. It's almost as if she's silently waiting for you to make the first move to show her that you're still emotionally invested. At this point, she might also become increasingly sensitive to any form of neglect or disinterest, even in the smallest actions. A lack of attention to her feelings can seem magnified in her mind, and she might react to it in ways that seem disproportionate to the situation. This is not her trying to create drama. It's simply her emotional state manifesting outwardly. Her actions might also become more self-focused. If she senses that you've lost interest, she might start to shift her attention back to herself. She'll refocus on her hobbies, her friends, and her personal goals. In doing so, she's reminding herself of her own worth. This self-reliance is important because it shows that even though she's hurt by the disconnection, she's not willing to let it entirely define her. She will try to maintain a sense of independence and keep herself emotionally stable despite the uncertainty in the relationship. This doesn't mean she's given up on the relationship. Rather, it's her way of emotionally balancing herself while waiting for you to either step up or walk away. Additionally, then the woman who realizes you've lost interest might also become more introspective. She may begin questioning what went wrong. Did she do something to push you away? Was there a particular moment that caused the distance? She will replay conversations in her mind, analyzing every word and gesture for clues about what changed. This internal questioning process can sometimes lead to self-doubt. She may wonder if it was something about her personality, her appearance, or her behavior that caused the shift. These thoughts often lead to insecurity as she begins to feel unworthy of your attention and affection. However, there comes a point when she may stop trying to figure things out entirely. If the emotional disconnection continues for too long, she might reach a breaking point. She will stop waiting for you to reach out or make an effort, because at this stage, she has already started protecting her heart. If the situation remains unresolved, she might decide that the relationship has reached its end, even without any formal closure. This is her way of emotionally detaching from a situation that no longer feels fulfilling or safe. In many cases, the woman who realizes you've lost interest will become more resolute. She might stop trying to make the relationship work because she no longer sees value in investing in something that seems to be fading away. This emotional distancing isn't just a sign of her detachment, it's a sign that she's had enough. She's telling herself that her emotional well-being matters more than staying in a relationship that doesn't serve her needs or desires. This is when the dynamics in the relationship become irreversible, unless there's an effort to truly rebuild the connection and emotional bond. Her response is a reflection of her inner need for security, attention, and most importantly, respect. If those things aren't being met, her emotional withdrawal is her way of reclaiming control. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, one of the clearest ways she reacts is by changing how she shows affection. Affection is like the invisible thread that connects two people. It's in the way she smiles at you, the way she touches your hand without thinking, the excitement in her voice when she hears from you. All of these little actions build the feeling of closeness and love. But when she starts to feel like your heart isn't in the relationship anymore, her natural response is to pull her affection back. It's not because she's trying to punish you, but because affection is something that thrives on mutual care and interest. When it feels one-sided, it starts to feel uncomfortable, even forced. At the beginning of a relationship, affection flows easily. You both feel excited just to hear each other's voices or spend a few minutes together, even if it's just sitting on the couch doing nothing. But when she senses that you've drifted away emotionally, it creates confusion and hurt inside her. She might wonder, why should I keep giving my heart to someone who isn't showing me the same in return? And so she begins to hold back. The random hugs, the playful teasing, the hand holding, the long, sweet text messages. All of it starts to fade away, sometimes without her even realizing it. This change in affection can leave a huge gap in the relationship, and if you pay close attention, you'll notice it. For example, when you come home, the excitement in her voice is gone. She no longer lights up when you walk into the room. Maybe she stops reaching for your hand when you're walking side by side. These small but powerful signs are her silent way of expressing disappointment and self-protection. She's telling you, without words, that she feels the imbalance and her heart is adjusting to the new reality. Sometimes the lack of affection doesn't just show up in what she stops doing, but in what she starts avoiding. She may begin to avoid physical closeness, like sitting on opposite ends of the couch or going to bed without saying goodnight, the same way she used to. Even her body language will speak volumes. Where there was once openness, leaning in, making eye contact, resting her head on your shoulder, now you'll see crossed arms, more space between you, and a focus on everything else but you. And here's the real truth. Most of the time, she doesn't want to act this way. She doesn't wake up one morning and decide to withdraw her affection. It's a slow, quiet reaction to feeling unappreciated or unnoticed. Her mind starts to believe, if he doesn't care, why should I? That thought becomes her shield against further emotional pain. It's like building a wall so the hurt can't reach her heart anymore. Now, what often makes this even more confusing is that she might still be present physically. She might still sit with you at dinner, talk about daily things, and handle shared responsibilities. But emotionally, her heart is starting to pack its bags. The warmth is gone, and the emotional gap keeps growing wider unless it's addressed. Affection can't live where love and attention aren't being nurtured. It fades little by little, then until one day you look at her and realize she feels like a stranger. And the saddest part is, she probably felt that way long before you noticed. Her change in affection is also a form of self-respect. It's her way of saying, I'm not going to pour love into someone who isn't returning it. When you lose interest, you send out signals even if you don't say a word. Your energy, your tone, your attention, all of it tells her whether she still matters. If she picks up on your detachment, her natural instinct is to stop overextending herself emotionally. She's protecting her dignity, her value, and her heart. So when you start noticing these signs, it's not just about her being distant or cold. It's about her responding to a need that isn't being met anymore. Relationships need both people to show up, emotionally, physically, and mentally. When one person checks out, the other will slowly stop giving too. Her loss of affection is the mirror of your loss of interest. If you want the warmth back, you have to be the one to relight the fire, because deep down, most women aren't looking for grand gestures or big speeches. They want consistency, attention, and genuine care. When those things are missing, affection disappears, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. And by the time her heart fully closes, it's often too late to open it again. So if you notice the shift, don't ignore it, because her reaction to your loss of interest is more powerful than her words will ever be. When a woman realizes that you've lost interest, one of the clearest and most powerful ways she reacts is by changing how she communicates with you. Communication is the lifeline of any relationship. It's the glue that holds two people together. When things are going well, conversations flow easily. There's laughter, curiosity, and a natural interest in each other's lives. But when she feels that your attention, your heart, and your presence are starting to drift away, her way of talking to you shifts, sometimes in ways so subtle you might not catch them at first. But over time, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. When a woman loves you, her words are full of care, excitement, and connection. She asks about your day, she shares her thoughts, her feelings, her plans, and even her silly little moments. She brings you into her world because she feels safe, valued, and loved. But when she senses that you've checked out emotionally, the first thing that often disappears is this open and easy conversation. She starts to close off little by little. The long talks turn into short replies. The sweet good morning texts stop showing up on your phone. The effort to start conversations disappears, and suddenly it's you sitting there wondering why the room feels so quiet. Her communication will often shift from warm and engaged to cold and distant. When you speak, she may answer, but her voice will sound flat. There's no sparkle in her words, no curiosity in her questions, and no emotional energy behind the conversation. Sometimes it's not even what she says, but what she doesn't say. Silence can be louder than words. If the girl who once couldn't wait to tell you about her day suddenly seems like she has nothing to share, that's a sign her heart is reacting to what it feels. A lack of interest coming from you. And it's not just about small talk or daily updates. She will also stop talking about feelings. When a woman loves you, she wants to know how you feel, and she wants to share her feelings too. But if you've grown distant, her heart starts building walls instead of bridges. She no longer wants to expose her feelings to someone who seems uninterested or emotionally unavailable. So instead of opening up, she starts to protect herself. Conversations stay surface, level, distant, and sometimes dry. You might notice more one-word answers, less eye contact, and a shorter temper from meaningless chit-chat. She might even stop correcting your mistakes or challenging you in playful ways because she no longer sees the point of investing that energy. The truth is, when her communication starts to fade, it's not random. It's her way of responding to the emotional gap she feels. And the sad part is, by the time most men notice it, the damage is already deep. She's already spent time wondering why you've lost interest, doubting her own worth, and hoping things would go back to the way they used to be. But when that hope starts to fade, so does her desire to communicate. After all, why would she keep talking to someone who seems like they've already moved on emotionally? Sometimes her change in communication isn't silent at all. Sometimes it shows up as distance wrapped in politeness. She becomes formal with you, like you're just another person in her world instead of someone special. The laughter and the playful teasing are gone. Conversations start and end with basic topics. Food, work, chores. But the emotional depth is missing, It's her way of keeping her guard up, of not letting herself get hurt any further. If you've ever wondered how women react when they feel you've lost interest, this is one of the clearest signs. The words become fewer, the tone becomes colder, and the connection through conversation starts fading. She stops fighting for the connection because deep down, she believes you've already let it go. And sometimes, by the time she stops talking, she's already emotionally gone, even if her body is still there. So if you start noticing that the conversations that used to excite both of you now feel more like awkward exchanges or polite check-ins, don't ignore it. That's not a coincidence. That's a reaction. A woman who once loved talking to you doesn't stop overnight unless something inside her has changed. And most of the time, what changed was caused by the shift she felt in you first. Communication is always the first bridge to crack when interest disappears. Once that bridge breaks, the distance becomes real. When a woman realizes that you've lost interest, one of the most telling ways she reacts is by becoming emotionally distant. Even if she's still physically present, you might still see her sitting next to you, sharing the same space, living under the same roof, but emotionally, she's miles away. This is something a lot of people fail to understand. Physical presence does not always equal emotional connection. You can be right next to someone and still feel like the loneliest person in the world. And when a woman starts to feel unwanted, unnoticed, or undervalued, she begins to slowly pull her heart back, even if her body stays in place. In the early days of a relationship, emotions are at the surface. You can feel her excitement, her care, her desire to connect with you in every word, every touch, and every little effort she makes. She's involved in your world. She listens, she gives advice, she comforts you when you're low, and she celebrates you when you win. But the moment she feels you've stopped caring the way you used to, her heart goes into self-defense mode. Women are emotionally intelligent, and their feelings guide them more than logic sometimes. When her heart tells her that you've pulled away, her natural instinct is to stop giving so much of herself. Why? Because nobody likes feeling like a fool for caring more than they should about someone who doesn't feel the same way. That's why you'll start to notice that the things she used to care about, she suddenly doesn't. She won't ask if you've eaten. She won't remind you of your appointments. She won't text you during the day just to check in. The little gestures that once made you feel loved and appreciated slowly disappear. It's not because she became lazy or careless. It's because she stopped feeling the connection she once had. When the emotional bond starts to break, the nurturing part of her starts to fade too. This kind of emotional distance can show up in so many small ways, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss them. Maybe she used to greet you with a smile when you walked into the room, and now she barely looks up from her phone. Maybe she used to laugh at your jokes, even the bad ones, and now you barely get a reaction. Maybe she used to ask about your dreams, your plans, your struggles, and now it feels like she doesn't even notice when you're having a rough day. It's all connected to that shift in her heart. When she senses you've lost interest, her heart starts the process of protecting itself, and the first step is always emotional withdrawal. And here's the part that hits hardest. Sometimes she distances herself not because she wants to, but because she has to. Nobody enjoys pulling away from someone they once loved deeply. But emotional distance becomes her way of healing, of reducing the emotional damage she feels, and of preparing herself to let go if things don't change. When a woman feels unloved or unwanted, staying emotionally close is too painful, so she starts to detach little by little. This isn't always loud or dramatic. In fact, most of the time, it's silent. She won't announce it. She won't send you a long message explaining how hurt she feels. She'll simply switch off parts of herself that were once wide open for you. And the worst part is, once this emotional gap grows too wide, it becomes almost impossible to fix. A woman who once gave you her heart completely will only take it back when she feels like it's not safe in your hands anymore. And when that happens, you'll feel the change not in her words, not in her actions, but in her energy. You'll feel the emptiness where there was once warmth. So when she starts becoming emotionally distant, don't brush it off as she's just busy or she's having a bad day. Pay attention, because emotional distance is never random. It's a quiet message from her heart telling you that the love and connection she felt are no longer being met. It's her silent way of grieving the relationship while still standing right in front of you. Emotional distance is the last wall she builds before she decides whether to stay or walk away for good. And by the time you see it clearly, it might already be too late unless you act fast. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, one of the most surprising reactions is that she starts focusing completely on herself. At first glance, you might think, well, that's good, right? She's taking care of herself. But in reality, this shift tells a deeper story, one where she is mentally moving on and beginning the process of healing with or without you. When a woman starts putting all her energy into herself instead of the relationship, it's her way of reclaiming her self-worth, her independence, and her happiness, because she's no longer depending on you for emotional connection. At the beginning of any relationship, a woman naturally gives her time, attention, and love to her partner. She shares her world, her thoughts, her feelings, and her dreams. She invests in you, she plans around you, and she wants to be a part of your life in every way. But when she senses that you are no longer emotionally available, or your attention is slipping away, something clicks inside her. She realizes that waiting around for you to notice her is a waste of her time and her heart. That's when the shift happens. She starts pulling all of her energy away from the relationship and turning it inward toward herself. You'll see her doing things that used to involve both of you, but now she'll do them alone. Maybe you used to go out to dinner together. Now she's making plans with her friends or going by herself. Maybe you used to watch shows together. Now you see her binge watching something new without even asking if you'd like to join. Her schedule starts filling up, but your name is no longer on it. And the more she pours into herself, the less space there is for you in her life. It's important to understand this isn't about revenge or trying to make you jealous. It's about self-protection. It's her way of rebuilding her confidence, her self-respect, and her sense of purpose. All the things that might have gotten lost while trying to hold on to a relationship where she feels unloved or unseen. When a woman feels like you're no longer emotionally present, she stops waiting for you to return. She starts creating a life where your attention is no longer needed, because the pain of needing someone who doesn't seem to care is simply too heavy to carry every day. At first, you might even admire her for it. You might think she's just glowing up, finding her confidence, becoming stronger. But if you look closely, you'll realize that she's not just changing for the sake of change. She's preparing for a life where your role in it becomes smaller and smaller. Every time she invests in herself, her new hobbies, her friends, her career, her health, or her personal growth, She's emotionally letting go of the idea that the relationship will return to what it once was. She's making peace with the idea of moving forward, even if you're no longer walking beside her. The most dangerous thing for a relationship isn't always a loud argument, a dramatic breakup, or hurtful words. Sometimes the real ending starts when one person simply stops needing the other, and often that's exactly what happens when a woman feels your interest is gone. Her focus on herself is the clearest sign that she's no longer looking to you for validation, for love, or for connection. She's teaching herself how to be happy alone so she doesn't have to hurt waiting for someone who has already emotionally left. And by the time you realize this shift, it can be very hard to undo, because she will have rebuilt her world in a way that no longer revolves around you. She will have grown, healed, and learned how to stand tall on her own. When a woman focuses on herself after feeling you've lost interest, she's not just improving her life. She's preparing to live it without you. And that's why it's so important to recognize the signs before the distance becomes permanent. Relationships don't always end with a bang. Sometimes they end with silent growth in a different direction. And once she's moved forward, you'll realize you're no longer part of the picture. She's painting for her future.